Hello, and welcome back to the Caregivers Journal, where we're talking with real caregivers about their caregiving journey. I'm excited to introduce our new co-hosts, Cindy and Christina Hardin-Weiss. Make sure to stay tuned after the show for Cindy and Christina's Adaptive Equipment Corner's Caregiver Tip of the Month. Well, welcome everyone to the Caregivers Journal podcast. I am your co-host, Lance A. Slatton. I am welcomed with Christina and Cindy Hardin-Weiss of Adaptive Equipment Corner. They are our new co-hosts of the Caregivers Journal podcast along with me. Welcome, Cindy and Christina.
Hi, Lance. Thanks for having us. We're super excited about doing this with you. This is fantastic. We love meeting people and getting to talk to them. And it just, especially caregivers, it's just kind of
right down our alley.
Yeah, it really is.
Right.
So we appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're honored to have you guys. And we also have Lisa Nigro as our family caregiver joining us for this chapter. Lisa, I'm going to come back to you in a moment and have you kind of share some of your story and what makes you a family caregiver. But Cindy and Christina, why don't you share with our viewers and listeners who may not already be familiar with the two of you, kind of what your background is and what the two of you are doing when you're not on the Caregivers Journal podcast.
Sure.
All right. Well, I am Cindy, and I'm a physical therapist, and I've been practicing for about 30 years, mainly in home health. Still do some of that through our Illinois Assistive Technology program, visiting people, working on fitting them with the right type of equipment to improve their function. That has a lot to do with our Adaptive Equipment Corner business as well, as far as helping people improve their function and stay safe while they're aging in place.
Yeah. And I'm Christina. I'm a speech language pathologist. I've been in long-term care, practicing in long-term care for probably about 25 years. And I've really enjoyed working with patients that are living with dementia in the memory care unit. And the families, their caregiver families. And I also work with a lot of people, they don't realize with speech therapy, Lance, that besides speech and language, that we also work with people that had difficulty swallowing. And that was really, I was surprised in grad school, but it really turned out to be one of my favorite things is helping people after they've had some kind of a disease process that's decreased their ability to swallow safely and maintain that functional independence in feeding themselves and then swallowing and maintaining their nutrition. And I really enjoyed that. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and you guys, are now co-hosting with us here on the Caregivers Journal podcast. What are you hoping to bring to the viewers and listeners as new co-hosts on the show?
Well, we really hope to, delve into the caregiver journeys, the different journeys. That's one of the best things about what we do. We love talking to caregivers, hearing their stories, really getting to know, because I think really when you relate, there's a lot of carryover from one caregiver to another. You can learn a lot of things from each other. And we are professional caregivers, but we are also moving into that family caregiver stage. And it's just very interesting to hear from different caregivers what their journeys have been or what their journey is currently and learn from them.
Yeah. That's one thing that I miss the most about not practicing anymore is that engagement with the family caregivers. It's just, when I was in home health, I did home health for a short stint in my career. And what I found out quickly is there is so much equipment out there or so many life hacks that we could tell people about. It's just that they didn't know that it was out there. So I found it rewarding to be able to make that connection for the caregiver with my experience and say, you know what, if you did this or if you use this product, it would make your caregiving journey just so much more easier on you physically and help maintain your loved ones' functional independence and their dignity. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can continue doing on the Caregivers Journal is connecting again with the caregivers and seeing if we can help, even just listening and validating
and making sure that everybody realizes that they're not alone. There's
That's
a lot
exactly
of similarities that are happening. So
that's
absolutely.
a good one.
I like everything you guys just said, which maybe we should do a show together. I don't know, but we, you had mentioned, how, sharing resources and support and tools and letting them know they're not alone. Two of my biggest things are take care of yourself first so that you can properly take care of your loved one. And then also that don't feel like you're alone, but being a family caregiver, it can be a very isolating feeling. And that's why I, really came up with this idea for the show, because, with All Home Care Matters or Conscious Caregiving that I do with Lori LeBay, we're talking more on a high level conversation sometimes. And I think it's so vitally important to reach the family caregiver, the caregiver who's the boots on the ground, who's living it still, or maybe has lived it in the past, that day-to-day journey. Because that, I was a family caregiver for my father, but I'm so far removed from that, I can relate to it, but not on the same level I could have maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I think they need to have a voice also. And as you mentioned, with getting those resources and equipment to them, you guys have a wonderful show that you do. It's Rolling with Ruby, right?
That's right.
Ruby, that's right.
And it's a lot of fun videos. It's probably not my format that I could do and feel natural doing it, but you guys just do it so wonderfully, and it's really a joy watching it. And we're just glad to have you here and to call you friends. Last thing before we go to our guest today, Lisa Nigro, is where would you like people to go to learn more about the two of you?
We have our website, aecorner.com. We started this journey on YouTube. So Adaptive Equipment Corner on YouTube is where we house most of our videos. So that would probably be a good place to start if you're new to the corner.
That's right.
Yes, and we'll also have that on the screen and in the show notes. So thank you both. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But today we're here for Chapter 4. That was a big introduction, Lisa, so thank you for bearing with us.
I love it.
Yes, and we love having you here, and Nick's with us also. We'll say hi to Nick.
Oh, yeah, let me turn the camera so you all can see Nick. There he is.
Hey, Nick. So Lisa,
Just hanging out.
you're a family caregiver right now for your son, and he had suffered a brain injury in 2015. 2010, you were awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal for your ongoing community work and has been featured in magazines such as People, Mirabella, and most recently Parade magazine. And I think you're a testimony, and this says this in your bio, but I would agree with that you've been proven that one person can lead to making a difference in the lives of others. So thank you for all that you're doing. But without further ado, I'd like you to kind of share a little bit of your background and your story.
Yeah, pre Nick's brain injury or post?
You start wherever you think you would like to start at.
Well, what happened before Nick's brain injury, I had the ultimate planned out. And what happened was, early on, I've always done community activism all my life. So I've worked with the homeless. I've worked with people who are underserved teenagers, sexually abused teenagers. I've also was a Chicago police officer for a while. And right before Nick's brain injury, I planned my life in a way because I had a bunch of school loans that I knew had to come due. And so usually in community service, you don't really get paid wildly a lot of money. So I decided I was going to get a real job, and I got a job. And I also had I had a part-time job and a full-time job at the same time. And then I blended it, and I was making finally really good money and paying my bills and doing all the things. Literally, that was only for 6 months. And then everything just blew up. And Nick, out of nowhere, had a heart attack. He just moved back to our house. He was living on his own for a while, and he just moved back to our house, kind of like a little in between for his getting another apartment. And he's a gamer, and he was a musician and an artist, but he's mostly a musician. And he's also at that time, 23 years old. And so he would spend his nights, gaming and talking to his friends and doing all the things you do until 3 a.m, and then sleep and get up late. And so the night before his heart attack, because that's what caused his brain injury eventually, he went to sleep at 9 p.m. and which is totally out of character and weird. And so, but I just thought, okay, well, people get tired, and that was it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, buddy. And so the next morning when he woke up, he told me he was just tired. And thought nothing of it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people think like they might do something different, like, oh, if I just knew, I would do something different. I'm like, I don't think so, because basically he just maybe had like the flu, you know what I mean? Like nothing big. And then I made him soup. And the next thing you know, I walked out of his room and I heard this crazy noise, which I'll never forget. And he hit the floor and then he died, and I had to do CPR on him. And weirdly, my husband was home at the same time. So he called 911 and did all the things. And bottom line is that apparently Nick had a virus that we didn't know about. He didn't know about it either, that affected his body so much where he had a heart attack. And then the heart attack is what caused his brain injury. And he has something called an anoxic brain injury. Although recently I just found out he also has traumatic brain injury, which I never knew until literally 2 weeks ago, which is something that definitely, we can talk about, like how sometimes you get information later, but it has a really profound thing that I lesson with that is, I'll just say it now. Okay, let me just say, I recently went to a neurologist for Nick because he was having seizures, but then he stopped having seizures. And so now he's completely off his seizure meds. This is a new neurologist looking at his CAT scans, looking at everything. She pulls up his CAT scan from like a week after his injury. And she is just talking me through the CAT scan. And she said, oh, he has a traumatic brain injury on the frontal lobe here, and on his temporal lobe. And I was like, no, he has an anoxic brain injury from the heart attack. She's like, oh no, yeah, he has that here, but he actually has trauma here, and here. And I was like, wait, what? And so then it all like came together in my mind. And why I'm saying this is because all the time that Nick was in the hospital and in a coma and then coming out of his coma, they told me that he'd be in a vegetative state, and all the doctors, and not all, many of the doctors, many of the nurses, they were just kind of wrote him off. Like, this is what happens when he's going to be in a vegetative state. Don't get your hopes up, whatever. But that's because they had that information. The 3 traumatic brain injuries and the anoxia, like, you're not supposed to get. I did not have that information. Mm-hmm. And not having that information let me raise the bar. Let me choose a different path for Nick. Let me try a bazillion things that I wanted to do as a caregiver, trying to get him, his brain, because your body is always made to heal. Like, that's all its job is to do, is to keep healing itself, including your brain. So the neurons, I knew the neurons would be firing. I knew they're trying to find a new pathway. I knew all the things, but because of that, I didn't realize that it was a very, very, very severe. I mean, I knew it was really bad, but I didn't get how bad. And I think that was the gift in a lot of my journey with Nick. And I also think it's kind of a cool thing to say, like, what biases do I have when I'm working with someone, or, already, and maybe I should release that and see if there's another way, another path. You know what I mean? If I had the energy as a caregiver, then I think like the medical community should just be like, hey, if she wants to do it, like, let her go for it, But a lot of times it was the opposite. I had to navigate expectations of the medical people and also family members and friends. It's always navigating their expectations. And I think that was my most challenging piece, is navigating expectation. If someone said, what's the hardest thing? It wasn't like learning to transfer, how to do a catheter, or, suctioning, or when he had a trach, how to care for his trach. It's literally navigating expectations.
Real quick before I go to Christina, Lisa, you're still a family caregiver right now for Nick. We saw Nick here with you today. What was your biggest challenge when you first started on the journey? Now, present day, what would you say is your biggest challenge? And maybe it's the same thing.
Well, it's still navigating expectations, because it just literally happened, recently. But, the first year, I always say that the first year, I literally don't remember. Okay. I was in like serious, like in the mix, you know what I mean? And I was just doing whatever I did. Thankfully, we live in Chicago. We have a hospital that was called the Rehabilitation Institute. Now it's called Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. And they're made for people like Nick. And also spinal cord injury is their big thing too. But brain injury, spinal cord injury. And going into that hospital was so great because if you chose, like there was other people on the same ward as us, the brain ward, other family members, like other families, they chose not to learn all the things. I said, I want to learn all the things. So the nurse was like, okay, we're going to teach you all the things. And so that's how I learned how to do a like catheterize my son. And that's how I learned how to transfer, bathe, take care of his trach, do all the oxygen stats, everything. I wanted to learn everything. And I think that made a huge difference for our family, for sure, because there was one other family there who had very similar age, situation, all the things. And she came up to me later. Her son, she eventually put him in a nursing home, which was their choice. I'm not judging on that. But the reason, she said, is because she knew the day that I learned how to cath and she couldn't do it, she said, I can't do it. Like, she just like put up her hands, like she couldn't do it. So my encouragement to families, like, I know you think you can't do it. I know, because it's super scary, but I feel like the facing your fears and moving through it and also failing over a few times, but having like the medical team and, people like Cindy and Christina, like if they were in your world at that time, they're like could coach you through something. Like the only other thing I could think of, this is like so rando, but when Nick is a twin, so I had twins, and I was breastfeeding my twins. And when you're a new mom and you're trying to breastfeed and sleep and everything, I couldn't figure it out. And there was this like hotline you could call, and I called, and literally just because I could talk to someone and they talked me down, I learned how to do it. It's exactly the same in this situation for me. I was like, oh, this was just like that time. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I was the first time. And finding and listening and just knowing like, there's the day that I pulled out his G tube by accident, transferring, popped out. I flipped out, that whole kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. I get all scared. But by the time I got to the emergency room, the nurses were kind of giggling, and I was like, you're laughing. And they're like, we're not laughing at you. This is like the thing that happens to people. You know what I mean? Like, this is the challenge. So, yeah. Did they answer that?
Yeah, no, that was great, Lisa. Thank you. I know one of the things that we often encounter in my professional life when we encounter family caregivers and they need more help than what they're able to provide now for for their loved one, they find it challenging because their friends often don't understand what they're going through because they haven't had to step into that role yet. I can imagine, Nick was an overall healthy young man, and then the next day he's not. That was a very fast, unpredictable transition.
Yes.
How was the kind of the reception from his friends and your friends? Like, this just kind of coming out of nowhere with no warning.
Yeah. Well, everybody obviously was in shock in the very beginning, and everybody was very helpful in the very beginning because that's where everybody is at. Like, it brings, in our situation, it brought a lot of people together. But I kind of think that I've never had breast cancer, but I've had friends who had breast cancer. And so I feel like the same thing. It's like triage comes and then life happens, or fear all of a sudden overtakes people, or whatever it is, they separate, and it's not like you find out who your real friends are, in air quotes, I'm putting that. You just find out people who are going to be able to navigate this next season with you. Right. That's it. It's not, I don't hold anything against anyone, but I do say it's the navigating expectations again. People think like you're supposed to be they don't want to hear that Nick is still in the hospital every 3 weeks for the whole year. You know what I mean? They want it to be some kind of joyful combo. And I'm like, so what I do sometimes with some people, because I know they're fragile in ways, and also we don't have that same give and take relationship anymore. I'll just say, yeah, we're living day by day, doing our thing. There's other people who are like deep in the trenches with me. They're like, no, I want to know what's going on, like what's happening. You know what I mean? So like, and those are the people that I could be a little more honest with. And yeah, it's very interesting. Like family members of mine who they couldn't handle the situation. They definitely left the building, as you can say. They occasionally touch base, but mostly it's not. So yeah, it's a myriad of people. But you know what's really cool is that well, first of all, I believe that even friendships, everything has a season. Even if before an brain injury, there's people like you grow differently spiritually, like in work or anything, you know what I mean? Just you live life differently, things change. And when that happens, it also opens the door for new friendships, new possibilities, new things. So my mind has been exposed and kind of blown to like the whole disability community that I knew about because I worked, with underserved, people. And so I would know like scattered with it. And also taught fitness in a facility that worked with adults with disabilities. But I wasn't, like you said, like in it, really in it. And now I'm really in it. And I see like how communities are formed, how people help each other out, how now there's social media. So there's like ways that even online you can figure things out together. You just like, in the anoxic brain injury community, I'll just put in like, hey, have you ever had this happen? Or I'll just go in the search bar and just put the problem in the search bar, and then boom, all the posts come up, and then I just read and figure it out that way. Yeah, so it's very interesting.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm going to turn it over to Christina.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing those challenges with us, and just your overall outlook on it's so special. And so maybe you could tell us some of the rewards. What have some been the most rewarding opportunities that you've had during this time?
Yeah. So the most rewarding things, like I said, is that I get to experience a whole different way of living. I actually think that I'm hanging out with more possibility people than before, like possibility thinkers. I was, as I said, like I've been in community activism all my life, and you have to be a possibility thinker to be in that, profession. And so I always see the bigger picture, things like that. Well, people in the caregiving community, there's a lot that are still feeling very heavy about where their situation's at, but there's quite a few that have figured things out. You just figure things out, and then we share, and that's a really rewarding thing. I think the other part is that Nick has blown me away. He has been the strongest. Okay, here's the thing. Nick, and I'm going to talk about you for a second, but you already know about this because I've talked about it with him before. He's a twin, like I said. His sister's name is Emily. And Emily was 5 minutes older than Nick in, twin life. And so, but she always lived like she was the older sister, like anciently older, you know what I mean? And so she did all kinds of things, and she used to talk for him when he was little. And I thought that he would never learn how to talk. And the doctor's like, no, she's talking for him. He's fine. And so as they grew up, and she's more of a blend of like me, kind of like, I'm kind of like in your face kind of thing. And my husband, their father, Perry, is more laid back, introverted, but super intelligent and like very observant in a different way. So she has like a very good blend. Nick is the kindest, like helpful, like the guy that you would call, in the middle of the night thing. Like, but that made me nervous when he was growing up, because I was like, oh, dude, he's going to be like a doormat. People are going to take advantage of him. And I'm flipping out, like, and I'm going like, listen, there's boundaries. And I go through this whole convo. He has a brain injury, so severe, right? And everybody tells me he's never going to come out of it. And sure enough, they call me in, and they're going to like, this is the day, like you have to choose, like to turn them off the machines or not. And they're like, and we only want you to go in there, only me, not my husband, because when I'm in there, they can tell by the machines that he responds to me. So I'm like, okay, so they turn down the machines, and which means that he comes out of his fog and he stares at me in this way that I will never forget. It was just like this burning stare, like, listen, I am here.
Yeah.
Okay. Do not give up on me. And I was just like, I'm not. And there's a nurse in there. Her name is Tamara, and she's still in touch with our family because she was flipped out. You know what I mean? Like, it was like a very significant moment. And he's like, listen. So then he comes out of things and they're like, whoa, he can't, this is remarkable. I know, Nick, you are remarkable. And that's the thing. He became and has been inspired so many people that he has blown people out of the water. I brought him back to the hospital. I have a tattoo on my arm that says 2127. That's the his intensive care room that they told me he would never leave. And I brought him back. And the doctor, when I was walking down the hallway, wheeling Nick, okay, so Nick's still fully disabled, nonverbal, all the things, right? But he is really like achieved so many things. He can stand in the stander. He communicates in his own way. He has a huge opinion. When we went to go vote, he votes differently than me, and it drives me crazy. And I'm like, oh, like, why? But that's the best part. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my God, I was so worried about you, thinking that you're like the king, like you were like a warrior. You're the strongest. You know what I mean? Like, it just blows me away. That's the most rewarding part. Like, just seeing like possibilities and how no one really knows what your brain can do and what you can do as a human, your spirit, and being nonverbal, how you can talk without talking, how you can communicate without words, and how you can do art. I brought some like art. We've been doing art together. So these are like things we do together. Like, we put together these little moss like paintings together. You know what I mean? Like these things. We just were doing, sun catchers, like little simple things, but like we do things. But the art piece, like, I'm not an artist, but obviously, apparently together we are.
That's awesome.
And, you know what I mean? Like, I've learned like so many things, just from being with him, and just his vibration. I don't even know, the energetic vibration of Nick is so powerful, and it's rewarding just to watch. Like today, I'm going to bring him to a facility to see a family member. We go to the facility. It's for dementia care, and I walk in. People respond to him right away, and I love that they find like a common, pure, I don't know, like unspoken thing.
Right. I love that, Lisa, that, we follow you on Instagram, you and Nick on Instagram. And I love that you guys do everything. You always have him involved in these art programs. I think I caught one time I saw you guys were making sandwiches to hand out.
Making sandwiches to hand out. Making cookies. Yeah.
And then Cindy and I were up at the Chicago's Abilities Expo, and you guys showed up, and we got to meet you in real life. And I just love that you take him along with, and that that you guys are able to share those moments together like that. I just think that's fantastic. It's a great advocacy for him.
Yes, it really is. It really is. Lisa, when we talk to caregivers, we always want to make sure that we ask them, and we want to know from you, how do you take care of yourself in this situation? How do you take care of your well-being and things that you can do in that aspect?
When I get asked this a lot, and unfortunately I'm not going to give the pat answer that people say, like, oh, you need to go exercise and do this. I actually know that I'm in I call it the war zone. You know what I mean? Like, I go to my doctor. I have an autoimmune condition, and it gets worse with stress. And so I knew that something was going to happen in this situation. And it did. And I went to the doctor and I was like, listen, think of me as someone who is in a war. Like, you can't tell someone that they have to sleep more or eat better or do whatever when they're in the middle of a war. Okay. It's just not going to happen. What would you say to someone? And they're like, okay, let's just figure this out. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like that. When I'm sleeping in a chair for 2 weeks straight, you know what I mean? I'm going to have interrupted sleep. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? But what I do is I go into the 5 minute zones. Like, I could take a 5 minute meditation. I just go 5 minutes on my phone, 5 minute meditation. Every morning I do prayer. I pray every morning, and that's my grounding thing. I'm very much into my spiritual life in that way. So, but that has been pre, post, during, you know, I mean, that's just part of my thing. I learned how to do yoga in the middle of the hospital rooms. And I actually had done some videos on that, because I was like, oh, look, you could do downward dog on this thing. You could I could do plank holds against the wall. I just like, I found a way. And that's basically what I'm saying is like, I don't want to dismiss the situation that I'm in.
Right.
But I want to find a way to navigate when you're in it. You know what I mean? Like, just find little things to do.
More balance.
Yeah. And you know, I can't clean my whole house, but I could clean one corner.
Right.
I can't do all the dishes every night. I'm going to do them in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like some things that are just like, no way. You make all these plans. They blow up in like 5 minutes because you can't. But because of that, I go in knowing, like, you know what, all this could blow up in 5 minutes. I'm gonna be fine. Like, you know, and also doesn't say that I don't grieve, freak out, drink a glass of wine. You know what I mean? Like, there's a time, you know, where I'm doing stuff, but the doctors now know, you know, like, okay, you're right. I can't tell you to sleep better, but I can eat better. So I learned how to take protein snacks to the emergency room and the thing, and then I made go bags. Like, you know how people have, like, in forest fires, they have those, like, if you're earthquake zone or whatever, I have an earthquake of Nicholas bag. Same thing. I have like the whole thing, my Quest bars, my, you know, drink things, my favorite coffee in powdered form. You know what I mean? Like, the craziest things, but like all my little things. That's how I do it. I do it in nuggets.
Yeah.
And I just honor wherever I'm at that day, and I do the best I can, and that's good enough for me.
That's awesome. I love that. Honor where you are every day. I absolutely
And breaking it down into, like you said, nuggets, because that's really, I mean, you know, the joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Lisa, with your circumstance in particular, this happened to Nick pretty much overnight, to him and your family. And if you had to give a caregiver in this situation early in their journey with a child, whether they're, you know, they're an older child, a young adult, or a young child, what would you give them as a little piece of wisdom or a little piece of encouragement if they're just starting their journey?
Breathe. Yeah, breathe. Ground yourself, like, find a way to, like, just, even if you have to go into the bathroom for 5 minutes, just to go in there, even to put cold water on your face, take a breath, do whatever. Know that, like I said, my first year was literally, I don't remember it. Right. I mean, I kind of remember things, but not like, I felt like I would remember more than that. But I also don't remember my wedding.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I don't know, when it's overwhelming, it's like beep, beep, you know, my mind goes, I'm on autopilot. But my big thing is learn as much as you can, ask as many questions. And if someone is like, why would you want to know that? You know, like poo-pooing your thing, just be like, take a breath, just be like, that's another human being. Let them know, like, hey, I understand, like, you know, but I'm just super curious. I always say, like, I'm just most super curious. I just want to know. And then you just and also research and do a lot of research, because I find things on my own, but I know people are overwhelmed. So basically, mostly is breathing, grounding, acknowledging that this is where you're at. Don't make like, oh, in 1 year it's going to be like this. And, like a goal like that is just every day is a day, every hour is an hour. Just take it as it comes.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Lisa, have you had any surprises? So moments of, I'm sure you've had lots of joy and humor. Have there, in your caregiving journey, have there been any that have caught you off guard or surprised you? Moments of joy or humor that just you didn't expect?
Well, sometimes Nick will just speak up, and say things. Well, he does say something that's super powerful to me. The one thing he can say is I am. And and so he says I am. And I come from the Catholic faith,
That's biblical.
but I don't even call myself a Christian anymore because I get so unnerved by some things that are going on in the world. So I say I'm a follower of Jesus's teachings. And one of Jesus' teaching is I am that I am. When God said I am. And I was like, wow, like that blew me away. Like that whole thing blew me away. I am. Also, just 2 days ago, we went to the eye doctor. Nick's having a problem with one of his eyes, and we're trying to save it. And last year, they had to sew it 3/4 shut and just leave a part of it open. And it was really hard for Nick because he could see out of both eyes, and it was just really difficult. You can just imagine,
Right.
So eventually I said, can we open it a little bit? And they did. And when we opened it, he could move his head around. It was like a totally different thing. All this information's coming in and I can tell. Well, the doctor just said, I feel like we need to sew it shut again. And I was like, I don't think so. Like we have to try everything and humanly possible to save it, and I mean, without sewing it. And so she's like, but I think it is. And then he said, And I said, did you hear him? And then he kicked his legs up. And I said, I'm telling you, he's telling you, no, like that's the last choice.
Yeah.
And so when those things happen, I can tell by the people's faces, like, whoa. Or when I won a card game recently at the Dementia Care Center, I lost 15 card games in a row and I finally won one. And I went, woo, I won. And Nick was sitting next to me and he went, woo, like that. And I was like, yeah. And everybody was like, boom, like just a little moment. Yeah. It's so amazing.
Awesome.
Or if I'm doing a yoga like when you do meditation, some people have like a word or something, you can say peace or whatever, but sometimes I go om, he will say it too. Om. Like that is a very interesting thing. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Absolutely. So let's try. Lisa, if we enjoy having you on here, I think we're going to turn it back to Lance here for kind of a wrap up. But we are so appreciative of you being on here.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Well, I hope you come to the Abilities Conference coming up in a couple of weeks. We're gonna come squeeze you.
Hey, awesome. Very great.
Yeah, and just to echo Cindy and Christina, Lisa, thank you so much for you and for Nick's time today. I want to just kind of close this out with a couple of things. First, I want to ask you, what are some of the ways that you've been able to maintain your own sense of identity outside of the caregiving role? Because I know for so many family caregivers, it really kind of becomes their new identity and they become so associated with it. Even family caregivers who spent, 10, 15, 20, whatever the amount of time is of years caring for their loved one, everything is so devoted to that and their identity becomes so associated with that. And then they're no longer that caregiver afterwards. They feel lost. Now they don't know what to do because they lost that identity. How are you maintaining your own sense of identity while still being a family caregiver?
Well, I think that it's my past actually helped me in this because my identity is always community service. Like I have a tagline before Nick's brain injury. It says, "Service is my art." I really believe that. I believe I've always been a service-oriented person. So well, if this season ends in some way, I'll be serving in another way. And that is just that's who I am as a person. This is who I've always been. And so I don't really feel like I need I don't need to have like an identity like that. You know what I mean? Like because I've already, this is what I do. I'm all about service. So yeah, I'll be serving somehow, saving some cat, dog, something, you know what I mean? Like what, I don't know the environment, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like what it is. So, yeah, I know that's not helpful for other people who really need to have like their identity, but, yeah.
But you're doing what you love though. I mean,
right.
that's your identity right there. You're doing what you love. You're maintaining that community. Yeah,
exactly it.
Absolutely. Real quickly too, you'd mentioned Nick is a twin. And, you always hear these stories, twins have this special bond and all this stuff. Even if he wasn't a twin and he just had siblings, I'm curious, how did his sister, how has she handled this and how did she respond to the change?
Yeah, it's been super hard for Emily, for sure, for sure. And it definitely she still communicates with him, like when she's home, when she comes back to Chicago. She lives in Los Angeles, so she's not here on the day-to-day. So when she does come visit, I'll walk by, like they'll be in the living room watching some anime, something, because that's how they bond. And I hear she's just like, oh, she'll say the question, she'll say, oh, I can't believe it. But that's how she was too. He would never really talk even before his brain injury. So she would just have like full-on conversations and he would just be listening. So yeah, but it is very hard for Emily, for sure. Because, well, and also his friends, a lot of his friends, it's very hard for them. So, because that piece, and also I say, like, Nick is gone. You know what I mean? Like, I have grieved that. This is Nick 2.0. You know what I mean? And like, I know this is his soul is exactly the same, but like, the circumstances are totally different, and that's how it is. And so, yeah, there's still some times where I could tell that something's like troubling her, especially when he's really, really sick. For the time where he's really, really sick, it's like, oh no, like what's going to happen, Yeah.
I just want to close real briefly with one last question. What would be your best piece of advice for a new family caregiver who might be watching or listening to this right now?
Like I said, honor where you are at that moment. Do not push away the situation. I feel like really own what's happening. Don't deny it, but also I'm not saying like turn your smile upside down, not like a positive thinking thing, but there are positive things that come out of it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's always a way to find light in the darkness. I just has always been my ability to even in the worst things. And I think that I've trained myself in that way. And I feel like that's something that's true. Like you can actually train your way to see things that are good. There has to be something like find that one nurse that you really bond with, or, you find the coaches, like that really help you. You know what I mean? Like even Cindy and Christina, when on their like Instagram page or their YouTube thing, if you reach out to them, like they'll respond. That's the thing I love. Like when I post, like when I see something that's super cool on your thing and I say like, that's so cool, you'll respond. You know what I mean? Like touchstones that way. It's like create touchstones, create those things. And yeah, but I'm really about breath work, about grounding, and grounding, I mean literally putting your feet on the ground and just imagining that the earth is holding you, because the earth is holding you. Like there is a way that you could be held, and just find the little times that you can, take time for yourself, like a foot bath. Even you can't take a whole bath, take a foot bath, like, sometimes I use essential oils and I just put it like on my neck right here so I can smell like lavender to chill me out, or peppermint to wake me up, or you know what I mean? Like little tiny things. I'm big in the garden. Yeah, there's a million things I could say, but a lot of the things I just say is like, but I really just say like, I don't feel like we should push away hard situations, because there's ways that we grow as human beings, and that there's a, like the diamond thing, isn't it? Like diamonds, like it's pressure and then it becomes a diamond or everything. Yeah, put on shine bright like a diamond and dance around the house.
That's right.
Okay, do it. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, Lisa Nigro and Nick, thank you both so much for being with us today. Lisa, thank you for sharing your story and all you're doing to help advocate for family caregivers. And thank you to our esteemed co-hosts, Christina and Cindy Hardin-Weiss. Thank you, ladies, so much. And we look forward to seeing everyone next month here at the Caregivers Journal. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Cindy here, physical therapist with Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Today we're going to review a product by the company K-Inspired called the Mobility Towel. Thank you, K-Inspired, for giving us a mobility towel for this review. If you find this video helpful, like and share on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check us out at aecorner.com. So let's get started. So this is the Mobility Towel. It was designed for individuals who have limitations in movement, whether it's from weakness, pain, poor balance, or lack of motion, causing difficulty reaching their feet or legs or back when drying off after bathing. So the Mobility Towel is 100% cotton. It's machine washable and it's dryable. It's got these very nice, let's take a look at this, hand grips right in the middle of the towel. So if you have trouble with grip, you can actually just slide your hands through this and still mobilize it. But it has these very nice grips here. And then at the bottom of one end, it is weighted. So there's 3 ounces of weight on each side of this towel, totaling 6 ounces of weight. And the way this works is with the weight and gravity, the towel actually applies enough force to assist in drying. So let's take a look at how this works. So here's the weighted end of the towel. You can see these 2 soft weights on each side. There's no weight here in the middle. And then again, right here in the middle of the towel is this nice area for hand grip, or you can slide your hands through if you don't have good grip. So the way I'm going to do this is if I'm seated or standing, I'm going to take the hand grips, I'm going to let the weight of the towel bring it down on the bottom of my leg, and then you're just going to pull it up your leg. And again, with the weight and gravity, that's going to give you enough force against the skin to help dry the skin. So you can just move your leg around like this. Now, the other nice thing is you can use it to dry your toes. So putting your foot on this, on one of the weights and kind of working it back and forth helps with drying. I also took my other foot and flipped this other weight right on top, and I used my other foot to just kind of help dry my toes as well. So that's another option. Or if you don't have use of your other foot, use a reacher, something like that. But that's for the feet and the legs. Now, this is also used, it can be used for the back. So the nice thing about this, I really love the weighted end, because if I don't have a lot of range of motion, I can actually take this towel, and because of the weight, I can just kind of sling it around to my back. And with the weight here, I can use the weight to dry my back. So as you pull up, the weights are going to pull the towel back down for you, and you can move that around and dry your back with the Mobility Towel as well. So that's a Mobility Towel. We at Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner feel like this is a great product for anyone who struggles drying their feet, legs, or back after bathing, helping those individuals to maintain their modesty, dignity, and independence. Be sure to check out the comment section below for the link to the Mobility Towel. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Caregivers Journal podcast. We look forward to seeing you again next month.